My female parents are in a tight financial situation. Only my father receives a pension, and they cannot work anymore. So I gave them my credit card, which has a high limit for them to buy what they want without having to keep asking. For example, they always spend between $1,200 and $1,500. In important context, my younger brother and I do not have a good relationship due to irreconcilable differences. We haven't spoken in almost 10 years. My parents gave up trying to get us closer. This month, the spending on the card came in the value of $3,000. So I called my mother to find out what happened, because never in a year has such a large expense come through. And she started to dodge until she said my brother and his 2 children came to live with them. Apparently, in the divorce process, the ex got the house and he got the company. They had 50-50 custody of the children, but she ended up giving up and he got full custody. Unfortunately, due to his mismanagement, my ex-sister-in-law carried that company on her back. The company's not doing well, and he couldn't pay the rent, bills, and food alone. Pension is still being resolved, but it takes time. So he asked my parents for help. I asked if he helped around the house, and she said she felt sorry for him because he was really tight, so he only helped with bills and not the food. I was annoyed because I don't care about helping my parents, but I don't want to support food for more than 1 adult and 2 children. I've never seen them in my life, so I don't have affection. Sorry. I gave an ultimatum saying either he starts to help with that too, or I cancel the card and start sending restricted money to their account. They would have to be responsible for managing that money until next month. And I was angry because even though I didn't care about their spending on the card, they didn't ask if it was okay to spend twice as much because there were 3 more people in the house. My mother started saying that they didn't ask me because they knew I would deny it, that it was inhumane to treat someone who's going through hardship like that. They said I know my parents can't afford to stand on their own, and they would never turn their backs on a son and 2 grandchildren. She started pressuring me to keep the credit card, and they would try to lower the budget so as not to make it so high. I stood by the decision. She didn't want to ask him to help with food and sent the money to their account. They're begging me to release the card, but I don't feel comfortable paying for 3 more people. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Your mother's acting entitled, manipulative, and toxic. You've been extremely kind, and all of them are taking advantage of you. If your mother and father had the bare minimum of respect for you, they should have called you to ask if it was okay. They didn't. They're now trying to manipulate you into continuing. It's simply inexcusable. If I were you, I would turn that card off immediately, and then I would think about whether or not to send a fixed monthly amount. I was considering saying you should be less hard-line about the children, but then I realized, why should you be the one supporting children who have 2 parents who should be capable of supporting them? Honestly, if your brother's living with them, it's his turn to support your parents. And if your brother is helping with bills, then the household expenses should be stable or reduced. But instead, they're at least doubled, which means they're lying to you about that too. Exactly. Brother is not out of work. Even though his living situation is temporarily resolved, childcare is now between him and his parents versus him and his spouse before. OP, they'll continue to gaslight you until you give in to give them money. Why would you want to support him and his children you've never met? They're being manipulative, so cut them off and see what happens then. The audacity of them. Isn't it great how people take everything for granted nowadays? You want to help your parents because they're struggling, and then they invite 3 more people to live off of your money without even asking you. And when you dare to say something about it, you're the villain? And although I think it's great that even though they stole the money from you, you still want to help them. Do you realize that they will still maintain your brother and his kids? They will short themselves to feed your brother and his offspring. This is called digging your own grave. If they want to keep digging, let them. As long as they keep supporting their son and grandkids, that son will keep letting them. My wife, Bree, 29, and I, 30 male, had our little boy last week. He's our first child. When Bree was pregnant, we talked about names, and she knew I would love to name our child after my mom, who died when I was a little kid. My mom's name works as a unisex name, and we both loved a nickname for it. So we decided to go ahead with that as his first name. We did not announce the name until he was born, though we told my maternal grandparents beforehand. My dad and I are not all that close. We've had our differences over the years, and one of those has come up again: how controlling he is. It was always there, but came up after he and his wife, Jana, had my half-sister. There was a whole argument about me being present for the birth because Jana's kids would be, and how he saw it as a great bonding moment and essential for me to witness. There was also stuff like, don't mention mom around Jana or her kids. Don't speak to my maternal family members if Jana or her kids are in the house. Don't skip college and go for an apprenticeship. That's not what our family does. Don't move out at 18 if you're staying in town. He also tried to dictate my and Bree's wedding. So fast forward to now. My dad brings the whole family over to meet my son, and as soon as they hear the name, it becomes clear that they're not happy. My dad and his stepson tell me unless we'd name a future daughter Jana, then my son's name should not be after my mom. Jana tells me how uncomfortable the name makes her. Her daughter, not my half-sister, but a daughter from a different relationship, tells me that the name takes my son right out of their family and places a wall up. My half-siblings say it's weird for him to be named after someone who isn't part of the family. This was all coming at me, and I had to get loud for them to stop. I told them, my son's name is none of their business, and if they don't like it, they don't need to be part of his life. Cue arguing from everyone, and I made them leave. My dad called back the next day alone and told me I was an idiot for saying my son's name was none of their business and that they didn't have to be in his life. He said I'm doing everything to make them feel like they don't matter and aren't family to me. He demanded I change the name. I told him to screw off and stay away from me. Am I the idiot? Oh, so he demanded you change the name? Tell your dad the next time he squeezes a watermelon out, he can name it whatever he likes. It's really thoughtful and lovely to pay tribute to your late mom by naming your newborn son in her honor. Of course, you could also just like the name, which is fine too. You are not the idiot. Your father's second wife, her children from her first marriage, your half-siblings, and your father are telling you in no uncertain terms that the naming of your baby after your dead mother is a deal breaker for all of them being in your life? Holy hypocrisy, Batman. He spent your entire childhood forcefully erasing your mom and your identity against your wishes. Don't let them do this to your newborn because they'll try. Agreed. If Jana feels insecure about OP having a biological mom, then she needs therapy. That family sounds toxic. All folk who are uncomfortable with you honoring your dead mother by naming your child after her most assuredly are idiots. Go no contact. Stay no contact until they come to their senses. And name your next baby after your maternal grandmother or grandfather, or your favorite actor. Ignore your father's requirements and his new family's. My husband grew up lower middle class to poor, and the biggest event of the year was they would save up and go to the buffet restaurant Golden Corral to celebrate birthdays. In a really good year, they would go twice, one for the summer birthdays and one for the winter. I would go when we were first married, and to be polite, I would say a cheap processed food buffet is not my cup of tea. Luckily, we moved to a place with no Golden Corral, so I was able to sidestep the issue for the past several years. We moved for my husband's promotion this year and now have a Golden Corral in town. He wants to eat there for his birthday dinner this Friday. We have kids and now he's a sales manager. I feel very strongly that Golden Corral is not an appropriate choice for a man in his position. I don't want to set the example to my kids that we must shovel as much food as possible since it's a special occasion. I shudder to think what his employer would think. I was telling my mom thinking she would side with me, and she was furious with me, saying she thought she raised me better than this. Her comments are why I'm asking here. Am I the idiot? Imagine what his employer might think. God forbid the wife of a sales manager is seen in some low-class establishment. You are the idiot, OP. The pretension is unbelievable. Get over yourself. I came to first ask, do you not ever enjoy crap food? A big, greasy, sloppy burger? an over-the-top milkshake, a donut dripping with glaze and cream. It's his birthday, not yours, so just don't go. And then I saw what a rude, entitled elitist you are, and I've decided that you need to apologize and take yourself somewhere else entirely. Your mom is correct. Sure, maybe Golden Corral sucks. I wouldn't eat there myself, but it's special to your husband, has sentimental value to him, and you just crapped all over him. I can almost guarantee that his employer will not care where he takes his family out for dinner. You sound like an insufferable snob, to be honest. Are you sure you actually like your husband? Doesn't sound like it from this question. I, 20 female, have developed some fainting issues and weakness in my legs, making it difficult to get around without assistance. When it started happening years ago, I was able to use crutches to keep me upright, but then the fainting got worse, so I had to rely mostly on a wheelchair to maintain my independence and stay safe. All that being said, I can and do still use my legs. My family lives in a 2-story house, so I use my chair on the first floor, but on the second floor, I usually stick to my crutches or walk on my own if I feel well enough. It's not too bad because the floor up here is carpeted anyway, so it's softer when I do fall. LOL. My sister, nearly adult, invited her friend Sarah, 18 female, over recently. I know her, we went to the same high school and have mutual friends, but we're not close. Sarah came up the stairs with my sister just as I walked out of the bathroom. I waved to them both, but Sarah gave me a weird look. A few days later, I was with some friends at this local froyo place. Sarah was there too. I dropped my spoon on accident, so I asked her if she would grab me another one because I didn't want to wheel my way across the store. She rolled her eyes and said I needed to stop faking for sympathy because she knew I was capable of getting it myself. Everyone looked at her like she'd lost it, but I just let it go and went to grab one. She stopped my chair with her foot and said I could walk to do it. She was getting on my nerves and my froyo was melting, so I looked at her and said, I know it's hard to wrap your mind around, but sometimes disabled people can still use their legs for walking short distances. But unfortunately, I can't walk across the store without falling, so please stop being an idiot and move your foot. I finally got myself the spoon, and Sarah was gone when I returned. One of our mutual friends said that Sarah just didn't know why I used a wheelchair, and I didn't have to be rude and embarrass her like that. A few other people agreed with them, but my best friend is on my side, and she thinks Sarah had it coming because of how she was acting to begin with. My sister is kind of mad at me for ruining her friendship though, because now Sarah won't talk to her. I just want to know if I was the idiot here. I'll definitely apologize if I was. Not the idiot. There was zero need for Sarah to do anything. If she didn't want to get you a spoon, fine, but she lost all credibility when she put her foot in your path. Sarah didn't need to embarrass herself by being a nosy busybody and nominate herself to the wheelchair police. You're right. Plenty of people can walk, but rolling around is much easier. I dated a girl with EDS, and she needed a wheelchair from time to time. Sarah messed around and found out, and her crappy friends are trying to cover for her. Don't back down. The default setting for decent people encountering someone disabled should be to believe them, not demand to know the ins and outs of their disabilities, make a judgment on it based on a teenager's understanding of medicine, etc. The real idiot here is that girl's parents. They did a bad job. This girl is a bully. It's not rude to stand up to an awful ableist bully that's harassing you. It's abusive to try and force people out of wheelchairs. A red flag is that most of your friends are okay with you being bullied. Nobody's entitled to know the intimate details of anyone's disability. I, male 23, have an ex-girlfriend, Lexi, 23. Lexi and I have known each other since we were 14. We dated for nearly a year before I broke up with Lexi. We lived together in my one-bedroom apartment, so Lexi was going to have to find somewhere else to stay. She has a little dog that was also staying in the apartment, a Welsh corgi named Elvis. Lexi already had Elvis before she started dating. Lexi went to stay with her parents temporarily while she looked for somewhere more permanent to live, as she understandably felt uncomfortable staying in the apartment. She asked if I could look after Elvis until she found somewhere to live, and I said I would. This was in June. The next week I asked Lexi how her search was going, but she left me on read. So I thought maybe it wasn't going well and she didn't want to talk about it. The week after I tried to call Lexi, but she didn't pick up. I left a voicemail telling her how her dog was doing. July rolls around and I've still not heard anything. I messaged Lexi's parents and one of her friends on Facebook and explained that I still have Lexi's dog. No response. August time, I tried to call Lexi again, but she blocked my number. A few times from September to now, I knocked on Lexi's parents' house door, but no answers. So finally, I slid a note under the door, but I still don't hear anything. At this point, I'm feeling very stuck. Elvis is a lovely dog, but I do not want a dog and never asked for the responsibility of one. Even if I did want a dog, Elvis living in a small apartment when I work full-time isn't the best condition for a dog. Of course, I walk him multiple times a day, but I think he'd be better off living with someone else to live his best canine life. I started looking for a new home for Elvis, and eventually, my aunt offered to have him. She's a stay-at-home mom with a husband, and they have 2 kids who love dogs. She has the time to walk Elvis during the day, and they have a large yard where he can play. They took Elvis home and got him microchipped. I feel like I've done the right thing. Lexi saw one of my aunt's Facebook posts with a photo of Elvis, and she started blowing up my phone, telling me I was a horrible person. She said to get her dog back right now. I told Lexi she's ignored me for so long she's abandoned Elvis. Lexi said she was having a depressive episode and couldn't talk to me. I told her Elvis deserved a better home that I couldn't provide, and she was too late. Lexi said I'm a heartless jerk. Not the idiot. She abandoned the dog. You tried for several months to reach out, and not being whatever, but she could have told her parents to contact you or a friend and have you drop him off somewhere. Instead, she's mad because she wanted you to watch him so she could get him back when it was convenient for her. That's not a responsible owner. She abandoned her dog and you found it a loving home. So apparently, her depression got better as soon as she saw a pic with the dog somewhere else. If it was possible for her to write, then it would have been possible to write earlier or tell someone else, as you said. So now it looks like she wanted to park the dog for an extended time with the ex and only wanted him back when she learned he wasn't with him anymore. That's trash behavior, not depression. If you did go to the lengths you did to try to inform her, you did your best to reach out and find a solution. The only thing I would have done differently is made it known in the notes you left that you intended to rehome him. I hope Elvis is now living his best life with a family who loves him.